Intuition calls and silence falls across the room. Better give him the money soon. Try and keep me away from you. To ease my pain, my thoughts again return to her. Dancing sunlight across your skin. Two fools come rushing in. Call me crazy, but
So here we are back in each other's orbit, and I want to tell you first of all how much I appreciate you taking the time to talk.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to talk.
Well, and I'm gonna rub the rhubarb a little bit because, as you know, I am a huge admirer not just of your music, but in particular your Dufferin County Museum album, which feels weird to say album in this day and age, but that's what it is. I think of it as an album because when I listen to it, it evokes some of the best memories imaginable of what I like about the 60s and 70s and 80s to a lesser degree. I want to start by asking you about that album because I think when people find this interview, they're going to ask, what do I need to know about Justin McDonald? What can I find out about this particular musician? And I think it's a great place to start. And as someone who has it in their personal playlist, you know, I listen to old Mikey J at least a couple of times a week. I love On the Phone, love Lazy Star, the crooning. Is it me, or when you set out to make Dufferin County Museum, did you realize that you'd be subconsciously tapping a little bit of Led Zeppelin and a little bit of Creedence Clearwater Revival and a little bit of Bob Dylan? Because I'm hearing a lot of influences in that album. Tell me about it.
Yeah, well, I think, as like the first album that I ever sort of put together, it would make a lot of sense that you'd hear all of those influences because it was like, 20 some odd years of me cutting my teeth, like learning all of those songs and writing from, that sort of perspective of like trying to combine all those influences into something cohesive. So, yeah, that sticks for sure.
It's funny too because I hear three things that make it, in my opinion, something I really enjoy putting on and listening to. First of all, I like the fact that you're playing guitar differently, it seems, with every song. I mean, even though it may sound similar and you've tuned it the same way, the way you're playing it would probably make a Jimmy Page raise a brow because I'm hearing that every song kind of matches the mood of the vocals. Was that something you set out to do, or is that just the result of you being a singer, a multi-instrumentalist, for the sake of a better term?
Yeah, I don't think I ever really put that much thought into that. I usually, when I'm writing a song, I'll typically have like the vocal melody in mind first, and then I just try to sit down, and a lot of times I'll hum or like mumble like melodies into my phone, or at the time it was like one of those those little mini tape recorders. I had one of those, and if I was driving or whatever and something popped into my head, I'd just pick up the thing and be like, blah, 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 blah. And then when I got home from whatever I was doing, I'd play it back and try to figure out the chords to the melody that I'd made up. Yeah, no, it's still my process to this day. If I get a melody in my head and if it sticks, then I'm like, oh, I got to get this out of here. Yeah.
You got to sing it out. You got to project it so you can go back afterwards inside the laboratory where all the magic happens and figure out what the heck you were mumbling and murmuring and chanting.
Yeah, for sure.
Which I think is a glorious way, isn't it? I mean, isn't that the greatest freedom and fun you might have as a musician, is when you're like at that origin stage where your mind is visualizing it, but you know you're going to have to figure out how to project it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the fun of it for sure. And then to take it even further, I've worked on a few projects since, but that one was really awesome to sort of when I recorded it, it was just me and the guitar, and then I put that out to some people, and they sort of took it and had their interpretations on it as well. So it was pretty collaborative in that sense. Like, they were my songs, but I kind of let the musicians that played on the record sort of come up with their own things and back up the guitar lines and horns and things like that. I just sort of let them have at it. And if it was like too much, like there was one song where the drummer was like, he was putting a lot of cowbell, a lot of unnecessary cowbell, and I was like, I'm all for a good cowbelling, but this that's not the vibe right now.
Exactly. You don't want to channel too much of the Blue Oyster Cult, and then people start thinking that you're like rooted in the same genre of music. Well, it's interesting you
Yeah.
mentioned horns because that brings me to my second reason why I'm a fan of the album. You put in a lot of, as you've mentioned, supplemental instruments with other people's interpretation, whether it's the keyboard, whether it's the saxophone, whether it's some kind of string instrument or horns, and it shows. Even though it's your song, it definitely feels like it's very much a collaborative process that you went through to make sure it tasted just right.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the horns too. It was just a friend of mine, Dave Joseph, Perry Joseph's son, actually. He just doubled his lines with his sax, and I was just kind of like, I think I was listening to a lot of Moondance, the Van Morrison album Moondance at the time, so I was like, I'm kind of thinking, sort of a Moondance vibe, and that was kind of all I really said. And Dave, who I think was like, I don't even know, like 17 at the time. I don't even know. He was pretty young. He was like, got it, boom. I think he did all this stuff in like one take. The guy's a phenom, that guy.
It's interesting too, isn't it? When you live around local parts where people see you play at different pubs, restaurants, or festivals. You mentioned Perry, proprietor of the local Orangeville music store, a real admirer of yours. We unwittingly ended up talking about you. I said, "Oh, I know this great artist." He said, "Oh, really?" And I started gushing about you. Next thing you know, he says, "Yeah, well, my son recorded with him." I was like, "Oh boy." That is amazing. Also, the fact
Yeah.
that another local talent and member of the Whiskey and Cream festivals will be Bon Giovanni, and he's a huge admirer now because he found your studio version of Old Mikey J and
Mhm.
basically recognized the Beatles' influence that was kind of bleeding through with the way that in particular, piano was shuffling. And I think that's
Yeah.
probably your greatest strength, right? Is that you're keeping an open mind to where exactly the song will ferment and how it will grow.
hmm Yeah, definitely. Um, and yeah, I think I just had attracted the right musicians, and I worked with Stuart Gunn, who produced and recorded that album, and he had some suggestions of local musicians at the time because I was sort of new to the area. So he was the one that really like sort of spearheaded that whole project, and he was like, "Yeah, I would, if you're looking for what sort of instrumentation are you looking for?" And he made his suggestions, and yeah, that's who I chose to put on the record. And thank God he made those suggestions because it really worked well. Yeah.
It turned out beautifully. And then, of course, the third and final reason, arguably the most important, I think you'll agree, is your collaboration with your partner, with Steph Spoon, I think you called her, or Spoons. What's the moniker that she uses there?
Spoons.
Spoons. Uh,
Spoons. Yeah.
Steph McDonald ended up collaborating with you on the vocal side, and I think that's what makes so much of the weight of the impact of this first effort felt, right? Is the fact that she helps elevate your stylistic approach, even though she's not
Mhm.
necessarily the same type of musician, correct?
Yeah, no, not at all. She's very into the electronic influence. She grew up listening. I mean, she grew up listening to all the same stuff that I did as well, but her dad was super into prog rock and Kraftwerk and Mike Oldfield. She's huge into Mike Oldfield, so she's got that. That's her. That's her big influence for sure in her background.
It's funny you bring up prog rock because I think that's what kind of made us fast friends was when we sat down and we started talking about Gentle Giant and King
Yeah,
Crimson
yeah.
and Mahavishnu Orchestra, which, as you know, are near and dear to both of us because it may perhaps at that junction of time been the best example of how multi-instrumentalists can show off, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that was the best time to be alive to see real musical talent being ambitious and on display.
big time, big time.
How much
Yeah,
do you
it's
think? How much did that influence you? I'm curious.
I mean, I think it had more of an influence on me when I was sort of trying to finesse my like electric guitar, like lead playing. From a writing perspective, when I was writing my own stuff, um, I think just having definitely gives you an ear for how perfect a performance could potentially be when you're trying to record. That's for certain. Like these guys were amazing at their craft. Like, and I never quite got to that point, but certainly I've always been a huge fan of that era of prog rock for sure.
Well, and it was one that was very experimental, and
Mhm.
sometimes to the point where it was just repudiated for being pretentious, which
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
I'm not a big
It-
fan of that, because I think when you call music pretentious, it's likely you just don't understand it.
oh, absolutely. You're letting your own insecurities about something shine through when you start flogging other music. And that's something that I learned a while ago. Or was like, it may not be my thing, but like I'm not gonna. I think it's silly to you know, put someone down for something that they just enjoy. It's like just totally harmless. Like, yeah, it's not pretentious. It's just like a bunch of dudes trying their best to make the best possible music they know they're capable of, and pushing those limits. Like how crazy can we get this where it's like still orchestral and like functional as like when you evokes emotion still when you're listening to it.
Of course, when you describe that, just that last segment about the intricacies involved, how you have to unleash it, it reminds me of Frank Zappa. I mean,
Yeah,
Zappa
for
was
sure.
probably, would you say he was probably the quintessential multi-instrumentalist unicorn in that regard?
I'd say he's definitely up there for sure. But yeah, I mean, like, and certainly sort of like a progenitor to like things that to come, like your Mike Oldfields and Kraftwerk and things like that. But I think he was like, I remember listening to an interview with I can't remember her name right now, and that's awful. But the marimba and xylophone player in Zappa's band, and like how much they rehearsed and how much he um expected of his band to like be able to pull all these things off. And she was like it was grueling, but like also she was so grateful to like have to go through that process, right? Because it really helps you just become a better musician. So yeah.
And the influence is lasting. And sometimes it even gets ignored, right? You look at Steve Vai. Where would Steve Vai be had he not had those early years with Zappa? And,
Oh yeah, for sure.
a hell of a guitar hero in his own right. I never really liked his experimental phase after Zappa. I liked it during. I almost felt
Yeah.
like it was like listening to Jeff Beck and the remember mid 70s when he had that experience of watching Mahavishnu Orchestra, and then he grabbed George Martin and made Scatterbrain and so much of those great songs off of what he was doing in those mid 70s. Really experimental stuff.
Hmm. Yeah, that's I don't know. I think it's just changed a bit. I was gonna say like I don't know if that happens anymore, but it does happen. It happens all the time for sure. It's just
What about you personally? These days, do you prefer playing solo and experimenting yourself, or doing traditional arrangements that you've already established, or do you enjoy going out with your band and maybe trying different things? Because if you go online and you look up your profile and people research you, I think it limits you, right? It refers to you as like a bluegrass artist or a partial country artist. And I'm thinking to myself, who wrote this, right? Like, I guess the algorithm had a little bit too much on the publicity side. To me, you're so much more than that. These days, what's challenging you as now a 10-year plus active out there musician, showing people what you're all about?
Yeah, I think I'm actually starting to slow down on the solo stuff. Um, I spent a lot of time the last few years doing a lot of like bar band cover type of thing, and sort of started to realize that it was really taking away from my um, some of the joy I used to have performing my own material. And then it was also, I only have so much time to dedicate to the art, and I just came to the realization that I would rather be at home writing again, writing some new material, or yeah, I've got a couple of different projects on the go that I think I'm just going to start focusing more on that and writing. So I play in a band with my dad, a bluegrass band with my dad, Stony Lonesome, and we just actually just this past weekend we did 13 songs live off the floor. It was it
Gorgeous,
was a
gorgeous.
crazy weekend, yeah. And last May, I can't even remember. Last summer, I did a 6-song EP with some old friends of mine, Jay Marr and Eric Bruck, who both play on the Dufferin County Museum record, and a good friend of mine, Andrew MacArthur. We did a 6-song EP. Again, it was like live off the floor, and it's all original stuff, sort of more of a swampy, rootsier side. Um, and super collaborative. We there's 3 writers in the band, and we all really get along well. And so we've been rehearsing that and writing some more new material, and we're hoping to get some shows in this summer. That's sort of where my focus has been at lately, and it's been a blast. It's been a real blast, yeah.
And just
And it's
think,
funny what you mentioned. Sorry, you mentioned before about the prog influence. I find that I use a lot of that prog influence when I'm in my bluegrass playing more than my rock playing, because of the technicality of that type of playing on the guitar is not something that I really do on the rock side of things. And it's pretty interesting to translate that to you're playing it on an acoustic guitar. It actually translates really well, like a lot of those runs and things like that.
it almost creates a default fusion state for you, doesn't it? Because in the process of exploring the riffs and the melodies and the hooks on your guitar, because bluegrass gives you a lot more space than conventional rock, you take that space, and that can lead to some very interesting sounds produced by both your guitar, and then of course if the drummer has a bit of a prog streak and the bass player feels like he wants to turn into, Ray Schulman of Gentle Giant, now you've got a very strong, unique sound.
Yeah, for sure. We don't have a drummer, but we don't need a drummer.
You don't need a drummer. They're
Sorry to all
overrated
those drummers out
sometimes.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot. We're going to be watching this going, that's fantastic. No, but
Yeah.
it's a testament to, like you said, it gives you a lot of room to experiment and try different layering of sounds. And if you really want to get pretentious, you can call it Dufferin County Museum 2, like a Roman numeral. Just keep going, right? But it does sound.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, this does sound like it's a chance for you to do a 2.0 version of what you originally started, rooted in your own collaborative work as a solo artist and with good people. Tell me the difference today, though. I mean, I listen to Dufferin County Museum, and it's gorgeous. It's very personal. It feels like there were moments in a lot of the music that you've written and the lyrics that I listen to that sounds to me like you were at a junction, either a junction towards a family or towards dealing with some kind of dependency, or who knows, right? It's all open to interpretation at the end of the day. What's changed now, though? Here you are, now you're a family man, you have a little boy, you're a married man collaborating with your partner. Meanwhile, the world around us, increasingly filled with hate, doom and gloom, and a lot of misanthropic behavior. How does it change the way you approach songwriting now?
I honestly think it's I do a lot of storytelling, not necessarily from my own perspective. I think that I really like using sort of the way something might make me feel, and applying that to like a character in the song. I think that I'm not going to toot my own horn, but I think I've developed a bit of a strength in being able to place myself in an emotional situation when I'm writing out lyrics. I can try to recall, like, this person's supposed to feel this way, like think of a time when I was feeling a similar way and apply that. I honestly try not to let the doom and gloom of the world sort of influence. I think that my family is a pretty good shield. against all that the nonsense in the world. I've got it pretty good here in my own personal life, and I honestly think if you can bring that out into the world, and it has a positive effect. If you're a positive guy, and which I am, I think that spreads just as well as the doom and gloom.
Well said, especially the way you characterized your family as a shield, because
Yeah.
it's there not just to protect your well-being and mental health and sanity, but also to encourage you to stay inspired. Very
Mhm.
much the way you did back in 2015, which must seem like,
Yeah,
400 years ago,
for sure.
pre-COVID, 10
Absolutely.
years ago, younger McDonald. At the end of the day, keeping active like this, I think, is all about maintaining a good headspace and finding a little bit of peace of mind, which is why I do like the fact that you'll play a restaurant, a small little place in a small little hamlet somewhere, as much as you will a big festival.
Yeah.
Something tells me the audience really drives you, whether it's a small, intimate environment or a big, cheering, roaring crowd.
Yeah, I mean, like that's a huge part of it for uh, I would think any artist is you get to experience this like one moment of time where you're only focused on what's happening between you and the audience, and you don't really get an opportunity to really share that outside of like maybe your own personal at home life, like it can be very intimate, and that kind of, I love that aspect of performing.
It really taps into vulnerability, which is the only way you'll
Hmm.
ever find that note or find that phrase that you think will capture how you're feeling.
Hmm.
So
Absolutely.
I have a dilemma. I have a dilemma because I'm a big admirer of your music, and yet I get asked often when I talk about you how to characterize it. And it's interesting because as music evolves, we come up with all sorts of terms that we hope can encapsulate a genre. And I
Yeah.
think of the last three or four musicians I've interviewed, I distinctly remember, Steve from Fiddlesticks telling me how he pioneered fiddle rock, and then Mark Jordan, the great songwriter, Order of Canada, told me he pioneered yacht rock or was involved in that early '80s movement, right? And then I think
Yeah.
of new talent like the folk singer Braden Finley, who talked about porch rock and just the ability to be able to sit on a chair and sing freely and openly.
Rock. I love that. Love
What's the
that.
best way to characterize Justin McDonald to someone who's just discovering you for the first time? What would you prefer they understand you're all about?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I always I always wanted to be like James Taylor or a Neil Young, like that style of singer-songwriter, just your Jim Crochet's, just that era, that 70s, big guitar sound, like beautifully written songs, nice and clean, just I don't know what you would call that. Old old dad folk, I don't know.
Or something like retro nostalgia, a little bit,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it does pull people back. What are your thoughts on nostalgia? Are you anti-nostalgia, or are you one of those people who understands that without it you can't really appreciate how far you've come? Because it seems to be like people are divided. Some hate it, some love it.
Yeah, I love nostalgia. Yeah, yeah. That's a huge, I think that comes through with my writing for sure. Even if it's not even my own nostalgia, like it's a very powerful emotion that can draw you in. And I can see why some people can be like stuck in that. But for me, it's always just been like, you can't, you try to be as present as you can. They say like a happy person is a present person, but that's true. But I think nostalgia is sort of it's always been kind of happy. There's a happiness to wistful, nostalgic feeling to me. Like I find comfort, like a happy comfort in that.
I agree, which is why I'm going to
Mm.
ask you a quick question on your feet here. If you could go back in time and get front row tickets to a Black Sabbath show in 1974, or a Led
Yeah.
Zeppelin show in 1975, or a Deep Purple show in
Oh man.
1973. What are we doing? Where are we going in our time capsule, Justin? Which of those three
I
would
think I
you?
I think I gotta go with the Zepp, man. I gotta bring out the lead on that one. I think it's just this beautiful marriage, especially their folkier songs, like their acoustic songs are I think what originally like made me fall in love with them. Where it was that like your Battle of Evermore's, like, all the
Even
like Bronyar Stomp, like
right, right.
that stuff has just been like, oh man, this beautiful mesh of thunderous drums and like beautiful open 12-string guitar licks and the imagery of, and I'm a big nerd, like read a lot of like fantasy novels growing up, so the Tolkien imagery and the lyrics, and yeah, that's what really attracted me to them in the first place. So yeah, I'd have to say Led Zeppelin for sure.
I'm going to agree with you because of that Zeppelin 3 recollection. I think a lot of
Oh, dude,
your work on Dufferin County Museum reminded me of that album more than anything. If someone
really,
would
eh?
ask me how, well, because I thought back to the songs in which he would just play with a page guitar and then a stomping drum and then John Paul Jones doing one of 15 different instruments.
Yeah,
But that album is so special because you don't get the explosive powerful impact of Zeppelin 4 without what they learned on 3. I thought 3
for
was
sure.
kind of like the band's way of saying, we got success with 1 and 2. We're the big band on the scene. Now we're just going to go shut ourselves away on the porch, inside the house, down in the
Yep,
basement, where they keep the cranberries and the wine, and just
he's
create
my favorite.
unbelievable. 3, I think, is criminally underrated because everyone goes to
It's my
4.
favorite Zepp album. It's my favorite one. Zepp
It
3
really
all the
is.
way.
I
Yeah.
would say for me, it's a tie between Believe It or Not 3 and Houses of the Holy. I felt like
Yeah, House of the Holy too.
Houses of the Holy is a gift for those who loved 4
Yeah.
and thought they could never do it. Well, I would challenge that the songwriting on
Yeah.
Houses of the Holy is better than it is on Led Zeppelin 4.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. The arrangements, the actual like deep like attention to writing a song. Like Zeppelin 4 is great, don't get me wrong, but I think there's
There's
yeah,
magic.
I don't know. I think they were just sort of like getting a stadium. Like they got a lot of shit kickers on that album, which is great. A little more rock and roll and a little less on the introspective side, maybe.
And it's interesting because if you recall, a lot of their live versions of the songs on that album are always highly improvised. I always enjoy how they play Celebration Day live
Yeah,
because it doesn't
yeah,
sound anything like the very layered, simple sandwich that is the version on the studio album. Whereas live,
yeah.
it's like release the hounds, see how far we can take this, and I think that's why I enjoy watching you so much because even though you're contained within everything you do with a purpose, I always feel like you're completely focused and relaxed at the same time. That at any given moment you can kind of unleash the spirit of music like you have. And I think that the more people who find you and learn about you will be better off for it to appreciate the kind of
Thanks,
music you have, my
man.
friend. I really appreciate
Thank
you
you.
talking to me tonight. I know you have a lot of plans
Yeah,
in the horizon, including being part of whiskey and cream festivals. And I look forward
yeah,
to
for
new
sure.
audiences, discovering you.
Mhm.
Where would you like to play in small town hamlets that you haven't played before? Have there ever been any corners of Dufferin County where you've been like, damn, I haven't been there yet? And I know you've been to many. Any places that you've ever thought of playing?
I think I've played in Hornings Mills, but there's not much out there. But I love that little town, man. It's so beautiful. Um, I think I played at the park there one year for Canada Day. That was pretty cool.
That's the
I'd,
stuff
I'd
of
like to go back there.
that's
Yeah.
the stuff of hobbits in the Shire, isn't it? And I know you're a
Yeah.
big nerd and geek. You're a big Lord of the Rings fan like I am. It's only fitting we
Yeah.
met in Alton, right? Where all the hobbits are.
That's right.